someone said something about why bother trying, and I said, if wolves are going to eat you, wouldn't you try to kill at least a couple of them? Like, you might get them all if you try, but what are you going to just lay down and let them eat you? Like, if you're in a bad situation, of course it's worth it to try. I think that a lot of us are in a really bad situation right now, and I think that there's not a lot that we can do about it. Things are getting really politically difficult, and a lot of people are experiencing things that are a lot of things are hard to talk about. Let's just put it that way.
Hmm.
And so, that's the reason that I designed this. This is my map from Self-Maximize. It's the only solution to it, because you can't really control your environment. You can move to a different one, but you can't really control the world around you. That would be the system from the quadrants
Hmm.
area, because it's external to yourself and it's collective. It's a large system. All that you can do individually is figure out what it is that you want, um, find out what your desires are, and I designed an exercise for that, and then check on your own mind to see if you are going about them correctly. Is there some way that you're getting in your own way? Are your beliefs accurate? Is there something that you think you know that you don't, or something that you don't know that you should? And then once you work on that, which is what I did during that time where I went from 4 to an 8, then you choose the way that you present yourself to the world and the way you behave in it, and you get your results, and then you have to analyze your results. I designed this page to be all anyone needs to self-improve, if you understand it properly, which some people definitely are. I wish I had some better feedback on that. I wish I knew what percentage of people got this and are applying it appropriately, but definitely it's working for some people. And it seems to be a pretty large number. So that's overall my message. Is it's encoded in this, and it basically is, you're going to find yourself somewhere in life. If you like it, good. If you don't like it, then you have to figure out what you'd rather have, and what is it that you have power over to get that to happen for you.
What do you say that you are? What is hoemath?
Oh God, that's very broad. I started out by just complaining on TikTok and making sort of like angry complaint reactions to whoever. And sometimes it was, girls that were kind of snotty or, unconscious or whatever. One of them blew up, and I happened to have all the skills. Well, I didn't happen to have all the skills. I'd been working on all the skills to be able to turn that into a career. So at the basis, I would say that Homath is my um, rude boy, clownish kind of overgrown child interpretation of how to disseminate the wisdom I've accrued over a lifetime of living on the fringes to the masses through the dating problems that we're experiencing. I think everybody has experienced some of the insanity of the modern world, and the mental and moral decay that we're all going through most directly. I think a lot of people experience it most directly through their direct relations with the opposite sex.
Hmm.
And so it was very the word escapes me, fortuitous, advantageous, very serendipitous. There you go. That I happened to blow up for dating video. Maybe it wasn't serendipitous. Maybe it was just that's the kind of thing that's blowing up. So I think that I've been able to sort of like, as the hierophant through that role, to be able to get the ideas out that I have always wanted to get out through the channel of, boy, isn't it frustrating to try to meet the right person right now.
Yeah,
And
that
I go about that being rude and being clownish and with jokes and with my crude drawings, you know. And so at the core, I think what I'm doing is trying to instill in modern times the wisdom of ancient times that we used to all live by because there was no alternative. Now there are so many alternatives that almost everything is a bad path. So I'm trying to highlight the core of the path of the human process, um, in my work
and
as
now we
my,
have hoemath.
yeah. Yeah, and it's coming out pretty silly, but it'll grow.
Yeah, it is growing. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
you have talked in some of your videos about your own journey with these frustrations you're having, and how you
Mhm.
surmounted it in some ways. You say
In
you
some
went
ways.
from being a 4 to an 8. I wonder,
Yes.
what was that process like? What did it cost you? Was
Yeah.
it worth it?
Sure. So early in life, from basically puberty up until that point where I, became an 8, which is what a lot of girls told me. I was just above average in height and slightly above average in facial attractiveness and, muscular and fit and all that, and had a good personality. Before that point where I sort of maximized my value, I was very unconscious of what it is that women even wanted or responded to. And so there were points where I was more and less fit and points where I was, more and less depressed. And my success with women would alternate along with that. So there was one time over the summer in between semesters at college where I was in particularly good shape and I was doing well with women at that point. And I never really made the connection because I was still under that sort of blue pill spell of like, oh, it's all about your personality and who you are. So then at another point later, I would get fat again and I would be a disaster. No one would respond to me and I would be bitter about it. Like, nah, you should like me for me. The point of going from a 4, which is when I was, you know, unmotivated and bitter and overweight and not taking care of myself and just not having much to offer, and the point where I went to an 8, which was my just the maximum expression of everything that I had to offer. It was really all about having um, a difficult breakup to get over and analyzing the reasons why it happened and figuring out the difference between my failures and her failures and the world's failures. And this is where the I wish I had a printout of it. This is where the quadrant model from integral theory comes into play, determining what it is that comes from inside of your mind, what you have a responsibility to change about yourself, and what comes from the world and what comes from your actions. The quadrant model from integral theory is basically there's the interior and the exterior, and then there's the singular and the collective. So this is, inside your mind, and this
That
is your
that visual
actions.
is really awesome.
Yeah,
Your drawing is one of your geniuses. I wonder, do you have a thicker pen or a marker or something?
let's see if I can zoom in.
Okay,
Is this better?
that's much better.
Yeah, there you go. I got the bendy thing. So this is the interior, exterior. There's the mind, the actions, the culture, and the system. And this is, a lot of arguments that take place are just mistakes about where these things are coming from. You could be, working in a fully functioning system and making a mistake and say, oh, it's external to me. The reason that I failed is external to me. And you're wrong. You could be doing everything right and the system is not set up to accommodate that. And people would say, well, you must be dumb or you must have done something wrong. It's a failure to um, appropriately place where the malfunction is occurring. That's a part of the AQUAL integral theory, AQAL. I have a map about that on my link tree. And that time after that breakup was when I, number one, discovered integral theory and started studying it, and then number two, started placing these things appropriately. And I did a lot of realization of, oh, I've been wrong about this and I've been doing this wrong. And there are some things I can't fix about the world. It's what they call getting red pilled, is realizing that there are some things that are just inherent to human nature, that they're not actually cultural, they're not actually individual. It's just like women are just like this. I was taught as a child not to believe that, and that everybody is just sort of a blank slate and you are whatever you're taught to be. And it just isn't true. So figuring out where to place all those things is what allowed me to know where to put my efforts in order to, self maximize and make myself the best I could be, which worked for a while. And now it's, I'm old. So whatever.
And what specifically were you doing? Were you hitting the gym? Did you have a
Y-
grooming routine? What was it all about?
Yeah, I definitely made more of an effort to keep up with getting like a proper haircut. And, I went out with a girl that I had been dating before I lost the weight. And, we became friends. And I asked her what clothing I should wear because she liked me. And so I, trusted her. So we went shopping and she said, you should get this, this, and this. And they were things that I would never have bought, but I liked them. And I put them on and I went out and women reacted really well to it. And yeah, it was about losing weight. It was about hitting the gym, building muscle. And it was also about one of the major things that changed about me during that time was getting rid of my insecurities. I used to not like myself before that time.
Mm,
I used to believe that I was just like inherently a bad person, a less valuable person, a less capable person. And during that time, when I was figuring out what goes where, I realized that I had been believing things about myself. I've been believing that there are things that are just objectively true about myself that were actually just reactions to what other people told me. So I've been carrying around in my own mind, and not taking responsibility for the emotions that I had been given through what other people have told me. So I got rid of a lot of my childhood insecurities, and women could also tell that. Like, you
mm,
become confident and women go, "Oh, you know what you can do and what you can't do. You know where the lines are and you're confident about the things that you can do, and they'll be much more willing to follow you."
mhm. And then, so at that point, you have more dating options, but
Mhm.
it seems maybe a bit of a more money, more problems type situation, and that
Well,
you also run into other issues.
it's funny that you say more money, more problems, because there was, on the one hand, there was an abundance of options and there was a lot of confusion about, what to do with whom and, where my lines should be. And my standards were very reasonable during that time for, who I would accept to be in a long-term relationship, but I kept getting disappointed. I kept finding out that, like, there was this one girl who had a few issues and I was willing to forgive them, but then I found out that she had been cheating on her boyfriend with me. And I know that if she breaks up with him and chooses me, it's just going to be me again one day, because that's her habit, that's her pattern, it's what she does. And I was right. I kept in touch with her for another 12 years or so, and she just did it to the next guy.
Mm.
So there was a more money, more problems issue, but the main issue was not enough money. That's why it's funny that you put it that way.
Yeah.
It was during that time, it was right during the 2008 collapse, and I had sent out about 1,500 to 2,000 job applications without getting anything. And I was in a place of the country that had what they call a brain drain. So, like, everybody who graduated college had to leave, or they couldn't find a job that was good enough to pay off their loans. And I didn't have the money to move, and I couldn't stay with anyone for free. So I was on unemployment, and um, you know, every job I could find was like part-time minimum wage, and it paid less than unemployment. It didn't make sense to do that. And it took me 6 years to get a real job. So by that point, it had been so long, and I had still had so many student loans to pay off, that I got this work from home job that paid 40 grand a year, which was okay in 2012. And I moved to New York City with it, and I found I couldn't afford to not live with roommates, and my roommates were terrible. I moved back in with my mother. I paid my student loans down to $10,000. I saved up $10,000, and I moved very far away. And I finally had the power to have my life in in my control, which is, that's a really economically based issue. A lot of people don't understand that uh, you know, again, it's again this thing. If the system does not allow you an opportunity to get into it such that you can build your life the way that you want, it really isn't your problem. It's just, I went to school and they said if you go to school, it's going to give you opportunities. It didn't. I just ended up in debt and struggling. So I finally got my life organized to a point where I had some amount of control over it, and I found that I was like 30 and behind the eight ball, and just getting down to zero. And long story short, um, the economic part of my life was a real major limiter for romantic prospects.
So with that gap, and obviously going to the gym and getting the
Mhm.
clothes and everything like that takes a lot of
Yeah.
work. Do you think it was worth it in the end to go through that journey?
Yeah. hmm Yeah, it's always worth it to try. The way that I put it, I think it was I've been on Twitter a lot lately. I think the way that I put it was, someone said something about why bother trying, and I said, if wolves are going to eat you, wouldn't you try to kill at least a couple of them? Like, you might get them all if you try, but what are you going to just lay down and let them eat you? Like, if you're in a bad situation, of course it's worth it to try. I got something out of it. I got a lot of really good memories out of it. I just drove across the country for the third time. So I did one north route and then one central route and then one southern route. So I've seen quite a lot of the country. I've met quite a lot of interesting people. I've, followed a lot of dreams. I've seen a lot of national parks. I've had an interesting life. I wouldn't have had that if I didn't make the effort to push myself to be the highest quality person that I could be. If I remained the same person that I was before that breakup, before that relationship in 2007, if I just, chose to maintain the same mindset, I'd still be living in my hometown. I'd probably still be 100 and whatever pounds overweight. I wouldn't have made any of the changes and made anything happen. It's that decision to maximize what you can do, your control over your life, to find out what choices you do have and make the best of them. That is always worth it. It's always worth it. Even if you're in a prison cell and all you can do is like hum a song to prevent yourself from going insane, that's worth it. It's trying that's worth it.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's a really inspiring message, and it makes me kind of wonder, what would you say is the message behind your work?
Kind of more or less just that. It's just
To
like
try.
keep trying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think that a lot of us are in a really bad situation right now. And I think that there's not a lot that we can do about it. Things are getting really politically difficult, and a lot of people are experiencing things that are, a lot of things are hard to talk about. Let's just put it that way.
Hmm.
And so, that's the reason that I designed this. This is my map from Self-Maximize. It's the only solution to it, because you can't really control your environment. You can move to a different one, but you can't really control the world around you. That would be the system from the quadrants
Hmm.
area, because it's external to yourself and it's collective. It's a large system. All that you can do individually is figure out what it is that you want. Um, find out what your desires are, and I designed an exercise for that, and then check on your own mind to see if you are going about them correctly. Is there some way that you're getting in your own way? Are your beliefs accurate? Is there something that you think you know that you don't, or something that you don't know that you should? And then once you work on that, which is, what I did during that time where I went from 4 to an 8, then you choose the way that you present yourself to the world and the way you behave in it, and you get your results, and then you have to analyze your results. I designed this page to be all anyone needs to self-improve, if you understand it properly, which some people definitely are. I wish I had some better feedback on that. I wish I knew what
Hmm.
percentage of people got this and are applying it appropriately, but definitely it's working for some people. And it seems to be a pretty large number. So that's overall my message. Is it's encoded in this, and it basically is, you're going to find yourself somewhere in life. If you like it, good. If you don't like it, then you have to figure out what you'd rather have, and what is it that you have power over to get that to happen for you.
We're getting into self-maximize here. This is one of your most
Mhm.
popular videos, breaking
Yeah.
down this chart, how people can use it.
Hmm.
You have a new product coming out. We talked about a little bit before,
Yes.
around self-maximize.
Hmm.
What is that, and how can people use it if they're bought into this idea now and they want to try to better understand themselves?
So it's designed, it's called selfmax.ai.
We'll
Let's
put
put that
links in
there.
the description too for people to check
Sure.
out.
Yep. And it is designed to be really very simple and easy to use. I wish I had some screenshots or something, but it basically is this map, taken and programmed into a website.
Would you like to pull up a screenshot or anything? I'm happy
I
to
don't.
work with
I'm
you.
not sure if I. I'm not sure if I can.
Okay.
Let me see.
For
Let
those
me
who
see if
are
I can.
just listening to this on the audio version, Hoemath, he's this creator who does things around drawings and stuff. So we've
Mhm.
got this visual, but I don't actually see his face, just so you're understanding kind of the dynamic here.
Yeah. So let me see if I can. Let me see if you can see this.
Okay,
Let me
sneak
know
preview.
if you can see it, my computer, when I do this. Is that clear?
It is. Yeah, if we could go any closer or zoom in, that would be helpful. But the
Okay.
the
How about
image
that?
itself is clear. Hmm.
Okay, great. So this is what the website looks like, and it's designed for you to be able to just sort of click on these things, and you tell the system who you are. You fill out like a questionnaire about, what your life is like, and
So
you.
we're using natural language for this. You are just answering questions
Yeah.
like you would to a
Yep.
person, and
Yeah, just like an
this
essay.
like large language model is breaking that down.
Yep. And you can get your Big Five personality assessment, and it includes level check, which is my earlier product, which tells you what level of psychological development you're speaking at when you answer the questions. It gives you feedback. You can identify goals. Basically, you're telling the system who you are, like what your life history is, and what your personality is like, and then what you want out of life. And the system helps you identify goals and then kind of prods you to pursue them. And it will give you suggestions for how to do that. So
Did I hear correctly that it
recently,
helps you generate your goals? So
yeah.
if you put things in your best language, but you don't quite have it distilled down to a hard and fast goal, it helps you generate goals?
Yeah. So,
Wow.
like, you can click here, it says, I need to be more productive. And then right here for the actions, you can go use the action suggestion tool. And it'll say, set a consistent wake up and sleep schedule. The system will tell you things that you may not have thought of. Incorporate short breaks. Start each day with a brief planning session. Gives you ideas. It
Wow.
actually coaches you. The AI actually coaches you for how to accomplish your own goals.
Wow.
Yep. Pretty neat, huh?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So
So,
this is
yeah,
you've done a lot of coaching, but you've taken it to a whole new scale now.
that's right.
Wow.
Yep. I've taken my self max map right here
Hmm.
and put it into an entire AI system to so that I don't have to do individual sessions. I can
Wow.
just say, hey, yeah, use the system,
Wow. So
pretty
what's
much.
the process again? There's an sort of an intake, and then what?
Yeah. So when you sign up for it, the system will just ask you to fill out a bunch of things, and you can fill out as much or as little as you want. And you tell it basically there's 15 questions about your life, like where have you lived and what was the best time of your life, was the worst time of your life, what's your family life like, what's your career like. So it gets an idea of what you've done, where you're from, and what you want. And then you can take a bunch of personality tests. Right now the only one that's active is the Big Five, but we're going to put other ones in there as well. And then you go through the desires section, and there are 8 sections in there where you tell it what you want out of each of those things in your life, like family and friends and career and your social life, all the major aspects of a human life. And then when you enter a goal and look for action suggestions, it will use all that information that you gave it to figure out what might be the best thing for you to do to actually get closer to what you want. Mhm.
Is there a follow on with it? Any sort of accountability, or is that kind of up to the person?
When you I believe that they either have or are going to integrate a functionality where you can tell it to text your phone and remind you to do stuff.
Um,
And so I think that if we don't have it already, that there will be some point where you can tell it to email you or text you to remind you to be doing what you're supposed to be doing. But as of right now, the only encouragement that it has given me so far, because I haven't used those features if we have them, is when you log in, it'll say, hey, check this out, finish this part, have you done this yet? And then um, that's the way it reminds you. It's like when you log in, it'll prompt you.
and you're
Hmm.
using this yourself. You are
I
essentially
have,
taking your coaching system on yourself.
yeah, I have been, I've been kind of using it and kind of testing it, but
Mhm.
I've definitely been on it for like 4 or 5 hours at least,
Wow.
just to make sure that it works. And there definitely have been several moments where it's like, oh, that's a great idea, and I don't know why I didn't think of that.
What would be an example of that if you don't mind sharing?
So right now I'm traveling, and it
Mhm.
told me to journal about my travels. And it's like,
Oh,
oh yeah, of course, because I'm not going to remember every detail. I'm trying to pick where to live, and I have a history of journaling, but I haven't been doing that. So it's not like I'm like too dumb to think of it, but I definitely didn't think of it. I've just been busy. So it told me you should be journaling about this. So that you can make, a better decision later. There was another thing about how I was having trouble focusing, and it told me about something called the Pomodoro technique, which is you work for a certain amount of time and then take a certain amount of break, and work for a certain amount of time, take a certain amount of break. And I'd never heard of that before. So I looked it up and said, that's very useful. And I haven't used the system for, a huge amount of time, and it's already given me at least two very useful suggestions.
Wow.
So I
And you
imagine
are
that.
in this space. I mean, you do coaching and it's got
Mhm.
insights that are outside of your
Oh,
familiarity.
of course. Yeah, every coach needs a coach.
Wow.
Like there's always as a human being, your mind is only going to be limited to. I don't know how to put it, but your mind is not gonna. You can't be aware of everything all the time. You're gonna have moments of forgetting. You're gonna have moments of lapsing. I'm not taking great care of every part of my life right now, especially because I'm traveling on the road, and having something to keep me accountable is pretty useful.
You're interested in being aware of things too. I think you said maybe one theme of your work is to try. Maybe
Mhm.
another is to be aware, to get into the truth, or to kind of be honest with yourself. Is there something
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah, that's kind of optional. It's not really for everyone. What we're talking about now is the pursuit of wisdom. And trying is something that really everybody kind of has to do. If
Mhm.
you just never cultivate any value in yourself, people are not going to respond well to you. And not everyone can be royalty and just lay around, eating grapes. So you have to try. You have to make something of yourself. As far as looking inward and growing in the levels of development, that's something that I would love to see more people do. It's not necessarily for everyone. I definitely
And you
know
mentioned
people.
levels of development just for a
Yeah,
visual. Do you have levels?
let me see if I can pull that up too. Yeah, it's hard to point the
While you pull that up, I'll just
camera
I'll
at
just tell
the
folks that
screen.
Levels is your most popular YouTube video. It's got
Yes,
millions of views, and it's
yes,
really about teaching people to think about how they think. And it's
yeah,
it's different than a lot of your other work, which is commentary
mhm,
on dating and
yeah.
funny things about girls on TikTok and
There we
stuff
go.
like that. It's a different vibe, but it is your most
It is.
popular.
It's funny to me that it's a different vibe because to me they are quite the same thing.
Mhm.
I'm talking about the way that people's minds work and the way that they could work. This is the map right here. Can you see it clearly?
Yes,
So over here it says AQAL by Ken Wilber. I don't know if that's visible.
it was
I
just a little cut
studied,
off, but it's better now.
yeah, I studied Ken Wilber integral theory, and I basically just took his work and the work of Levenger and Cook-Greuter and Kohlberg and Keegan. I just took this map and I tried to make it easier to understand. People who follow integral theory, they tend to be very academic about it. They use big words and jargon, and then they also say, "Why is it not more popular?" So I used, you know, the rainbow scale. Is that they have so many different color scales, it gets confusing. Like this is infrared, magenta, red, amber, orange. No one's going to remember that. And then the same levels over here are beige, purple, red, blue. So I just did the rainbow to make it easier. And I said levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to make it easier. And that's one of the things that made it take off. So it's based on developmental psychology, which is just a study of how people's minds become metacognitive through their exposure to their society and their experiences. And I think one of the major problems we have right now is that we used to be centered around here as a civilization, and I think that we're sinking a bit lower. The
And where is
average,
here?
right here about at level 5, which would
Hmm.
be the rational sort of corporate MBA, keeping up with the Joneses kind of level.
Hmm.
Uh, that's that's like the Enlightenment, the European Enlightenment, the Renaissance, that level became popular then. Medieval times would have been level 4, which is very rigid and rules based, and then before that you would just have, conquering tribes like Genghis Khan would be level 3. And we began to move beyond that corporate level into level 6, which was like hippies and oh, everyone is the same and one love and what is it that they say on the Hard Rock Cafe? All is one. That would be level 6. And I was hoping that we would be able to get all those people to move up into the next stage because there's some major problems being caused by level 6, even though it is good intentions. The road to hell is paved with good
Hmm.
intentions, right? So they have good intentions, but they're being very destructive. And I was hoping to get a lot of these people to be able to jump up to this level because I think that that could fix a lot of problems in the world.
Hmm.
But what I'm seeing overall and what I talk about in all my TikTok videos is people really behaving more like this. People just sort of saying, I want to get my way. and I don't care what you think. And it seems like we have a lot more of that than we used to.
Hmm.
And the way that people behave during COVID and George Floyd and all of the, the polarized politics that we have is a lot more like this. It's a lot more, um, like level 3 is like my way or the highway, and level 4 is like our way or the highway. And at
Hmm.
level 5, you can start to say, well, let me think about why other people disagree with me. I'm seeing less of that than when I was a kid. So my fear is that we're actually going down in development.
Yeah. And you said that level six is sort of this threshold and it causes problems. And you talk
Hmm.
about when you're growing up. I know for me, when I was growing up, it seemed that what you call level six, this sort of hippies, radical inclusive,
Yeah.
everybody has their own way,
Hmm.
relativistic thing, was
Hmm.
really put on as the way that people are
Yes.
supposed to be in the
Yes.
world. So what are conflicts with that?
So there are two major conflicts. What you just said is that it was put on as the way that people are supposed to be. That makes people not able to grow past this level.
Hmm.
So there are a lot of people who speak as if they are at level 6, but they really are just parroting it and they're just doing it to belong, which is why I use that word for that level.
Mhm.
And they're just saying what they have to say to get inclusion. They're just putting up their flags and their Ukraine flag, but they don't understand the Ukraine conflict. Those are belongers. Those are people who are doing it to get social inclusion, and not people who genuinely understand that, all people all over the world need to be understood and need to have their proper place and all that. Another issue, and the major issue with level 6, is that there's a white line right here. I don't know if you can see it.
Mhm. Yes.
And that's between first tier over here. And let me see if I can zoom in on that. That's between first tier and second tier. And the major difference between the first tier and second tier levels of development is that at first tier, people tend to assume that everybody thinks the same way as me. And at second tier, that's when the individual begins to remember that they went through development. When you get to level 7, you start to think of yourself as, I remember when I used to be this way. And then I remember when I used to be this way. And then I remember when I used to be this way. And so you begin to see other people also at those stages and recognizing that it's okay that they're there and they need to just be in their proper place, which is why it's called harmonize rather than understand. So the level 6 um, ethos, the ethics of level 6 is that everybody is different, and everyone has their own way of thinking and their own way of being from the context that they, from their experiences. And we can lump them all together in a big pile, and there won't be any problems because we can all understand each other. So, because level 6 is still a first tier level, they fail to understand that somebody down here who's like, let's say, a very conservative traditionalist Christian and then a very conservative traditionalist Muslim, they're not going to understand each other. The one of them is going to say our way or the highway, and then the other one will say no, our way or the highway. So
Mhm.
you can't just mash them together and hope for understanding. You have to move up to this harmonized level and have these different groups of people at these different stages be in their appropriate places in order to have the actual peace and oneness that level 6 people are seeking. So the damage that they're doing is by putting all these different people from all over the world in the same places, and then they don't get along, and then they blame the wrong people for it.
Mhm. So what can we do if we've been indoctrinated into level six as sort of the pinnacle of human thinking to stretch ourselves to level seven?
Um, what I'm doing is pointing out the mistakes that they make. If I knew what the answer was, I would be spending more time on it.
Hmm.
I think that encouraging people to grow to the higher levels and to talk to each other, like I have a Discord from my level check community,
Hmm.
and I'm trying to encourage people to go there and talk to each other and see if they can solve problems. We had a workshop a little while ago where we talked about how basically woke people will control things and destroy things by, bringing their dysfunctional ethics into it. And how can we combat that, you know on the ground. So we had discussions about how can we actually get away from the damage that this is causing and gain power to set things straight.
Hmm.
I want people to be able to um, collaborate like people who are at these higher levels. I want them to be able to meet each other through the power of the internet and collaborate and develop ideas that are going to effectively, take power away from the people who are using it destructively, even though they're not capable of knowing that it's destructive. I'm reminded of a stand-up comedy bit I saw one time where there was the guy was talking about a woman who was smoking meth on the bus, and then a guy said he was rude and he said, put that away, and then a third person said, don't yell at her. She's a human being too. And then the guy said, I'm sorry, ma'am. Would you please not smoke meth on the bus? And she just kept smoking meth. So you have a person causing a problem, a person trying to solve the problem, and then a third person attacking the person trying to solve the problem. That's what level six looks like.
Yeah.
Everyone is all equal. You have to treat her with respect, but the problem needs to get solved. That's more important, and that's what we're not doing anymore.
Hmm.
So what I really want to do is to come together to figure out what to do with people like that. How can we either get them to understand or get them out of the way so we can fix the problems?
Yeah, I'm curious about this. In your levels video, I think it was, or one of your videos, you talked about level six and you
Hmm.
showed images that appear to be Los Angeles. And I used to live
Yeah.
in Los Angeles,
Uh-huh.
and it just became overrun with,
Yeah.
chaos.
Yep.
And I wanted to leave. And I
Yep.
just wonder, what are you coming up with, or what is I think you used the phrase kind of building an army of second tier thinkers.
Hmm.
What's the army coming up with?
Well, it's coming pretty slow. Like my life personally has been pretty full, and I have been pretty tired. This last year of growing has
Yeah.
been um, kind of exhausting for me. And before then, I had gone through a lot of stress because of experiences similar to what you just said, living in a city, and then it became overrun, and it's like, well, I built my life here. I don't know what to do next. And even now, I'm still living out of my car on the road. Like I'm in a friend's place right now,
Hmm.
but I'm moving from Airbnb to Airbnb and hotel to hotel, trying to figure out where I want to live. And when you say what is I originally called it time army. I don't think I should use the word army anymore, but um, what we're coming up with is mostly right now we're still in the organizing phase. So I've got some of the more competent, capable people who are attracted to my work through Level Check. They are just running my Discord for me, and I give
Hmm.
them instructions sometimes, and they create certain rooms for people to talk about certain things. We run workshops like that one that I talked about. I'm hoping to develop that into something that has a lot more people and a lot more. Yeah, I'm looking for people who are just motivated to want to do these things um, on their own so that we can. I'm not sure how to be any less vague about it. It's just sort of coming together and
Yeah.
sharing ideas until we find things that are effective. Like, I want thousands of people to be able to come to the Discord and share their personal experiences of, hey, that problem that we all talk about? I did this and it worked. And then a
Mhm.
bunch of people can learn it all at once. I'd like to spread effective strategies quickly.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
it sounds
yeah.
exciting, and I wish you the best on it.
Hmm.
It seems you're very much in still a phase where things are going to come to gel eventually.
Yeah, I bit off more than I could chew. I've got a TikTok, an Instagram, a Twitter, a YouTube. I'm driving around in my car. I've got all kinds of like, I don't even know how I'm gonna get my mail. I drove through these toll booths in Texas, and they don't allow you to pay in cash. And so
Oh,
it's gonna get mailed to an address I don't live at anymore, and I have to have my mom go pick it up. Like I don't know if I'm running any workshops this month. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like I need to personally get my life in order. But
Well,
yeah,
you've had a huge year too. I mean, just
yes,
success on success. I mean, it's got
yes,
to be challenging to deal with new things, even if they are good and exciting.
yes. It's just a lot. It's like cutting out the things that don't work. Like I went from 250 followers on Instagram to 450,000 in 3 weeks, and then I just stopped posting there because it doesn't pay. It's like you just got to cut out things that even That's an overwhelming success that nearly everybody who knows what a smartphone is would be jealous of. And I'm just like,
Yes.
get this crap out of my way. I hate it. It just doesn't do anything for me. So I've had to cut out all the things that are not, serving my ultimate goal. And I'm basically down to YouTube, Discord, Twitter, and now I've got Selfmax. And once I have those things running smoothly, then I can add something on top of it. Maybe I, hire someone to be my secretary or whatever. But
Yeah. Yeah.
as it stands, I'm a little behind on my emails, if you know what I mean. So
Sure. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, taking the time to do this interview, and I would love to talk
sure.
about some more general things
Hmm.
that seem within your bubble still.
Yeah.
How can we just be better at thinking for ourselves in general? I mean, I think
Oh,
we get so many messages these days, and
yeah.
maybe it's hard to sort out what's me. And
Yeah.
you got images of man bad on the phone, and then that projects out
Hmm.
into another person. How do we think for
Yeah.
ourselves?
Um, bodily consciousness, bodily awareness.
Hmm.
So whenever you are, what's the broadest way I can possibly put it? Whenever you're experiencing, conflict or confusion or, um, like when I was trying to choose my major in college, I didn't end up making a decision that was really beneficial for me in the short term, although the things that I learned are hugely beneficial for me now. So it did pay off pretty well, but it took a long time. But when I was making that decision, I I was trying to decide basically between my passion, which was, media and communications, and the way that information affects people's minds. And I knew that wasn't going to pay very much. I was trying to decide between that and doing something like math or computer science, which I knew I would be bored by, but would pay a lot initially. And the way that I thought for myself was I looked for all the information I possibly could, which you can do that forever. So at a certain point, you have to decide I have a sufficient amount of information. You have to just choose when that point is for yourself. And I remember I sat for like a week or a week and a half in sweltering, muggy summer heat with no air conditioning, just thinking like, what is this going to feel like? It was in bodily consciousness. I was thinking about what is it going to be like not making very much money but doing something that is really engaging. What is that going to feel like for decades, and what is it going to feel like to be making a lot of money but looking at just text on a screen and writing code? What is that going to, how's that going to feel? It's in bodily awareness. That's the answers about what is right for you and what is wrong for you. um Another good example would be like people talk about trusting their gut sometimes. You have to be able to listen to that part of you. It's not always right, but it's always right about what you want. Like you can't be wrong about your feelings. It's not possible. Your feelings can be wrong about what's objectively true, but you can't be wrong about how you feel. So people need to learn, I think, to stop overriding their feelings in favor of, social acceptance. Like there are a lot of people over the past few years who have done and said what the herd wanted them to, even though their gut told them it was wrong, and they didn't check on their bodily consciousness. That's the core of all the answers. The way that I address this in when I do coaching is my favorite question is I ask people, how would you like to be a police officer? And so far, no one has said that would be awesome. They all go, oh, no, not for me. And I go, how do you know? And they go, well, I imagine that, it would be dangerous. And well, why don't you like dangerous? Well, I don't want to be, afraid, and I don't want to get hurt, and I don't want to. Oh, so you don't like those feelings. It all comes down to feelings. So if you want to be able to think for yourself more, you need to be in touch with that. You need to know what you're feeling and why, and what it's telling you that you do and do not want to do.
Wow. This is different than what I expected. I'm really
Yeah.
interested. Are there practices or what? I'm thinking of I got
Yeah.
friends. One in particular comes to mind. He gets up and he goes and he works in front of a screen for
Hmm.
8 or 9 hours, and then
Hmm.
he goes home and he has a couple beers and then he plays video games for several hours.
Hmm.
And I doubt he's really gonna be comfortable getting in touch with his feelings and things in his body like this.
Yeah.
So what can he do or what can somebody do who's building this?
Mm, you mean, I mean, it almost sounds like you're asking, how do I trick this guy into admitting he has feelings?
Maybe. I just
Yeah.
wondered, do you start with 5 minutes of meditation or,
Yeah, I
where,
designed a practice for it called life storming. It's on my It's on my self-maximize map, and it's also a part of Selfmax, the
Hmm.
application. And it basically is I divided life up into 8 buckets. I don't know if I'll remember all of them, but one of them is family life, and one of them is love life, and one of them is career and hobbies and passions. And you have to brainstorm. That's why it's called life storming. Brainstorm what you want to put in every part of your life, and even if it's ridiculous, it's what brainstorming is. Like, I want to be a gorilla or whatever. Just put anything that comes to mind in there, and then eliminate the ones that are, obviously impossible. And whatever's left, sit and think about it. Like, what if I was a police officer, and see how it would feel. And if you get excited about it, and oh, I would want to do that, and something comes up for you that says, oh, but I can't because, then you have to move into here and deal with that. What do you mean you can't? Because are you sure about that? Did someone else tell you that? So it's all present in the map, but it all starts with, um, if there's anything in your life that you're dissatisfied by, you have to identify what you'd rather have, and then see how you feel about it, and what your instincts are guiding you towards. Because again, your feelings cannot be wrong, or you can't be wrong about what you feel, rather. So the to get somebody to start doing that, I mean, it's a big question. You have to kind of show them the value of it.
Hmm.
You have to be able to say to somebody like that. You said he what? Goes to work, plays video games, drinks beer.
Yeah, I think that's a double-digit number of hours per day.
Yeah. So I would say wait until he complains about something. Does he ever complain
Mm.
about anything?
What's that?
Does he? Does he ever complain about anything? Does he ever
Rarely,
say
but
this is
yes.
my job is like this and I
Yes,
wish
yes, yeah.
that or
A
something like
lack of
that?
control, I think, at work is a big issue for him. Yeah.
Yeah, so, ask him, well, why do you need control? What is that like?
Mm.
What would it do for you to have control? And once you identify the feeling, then you can sort of turn that into, what would you have to change about your mind in order to act differently to get the control that you want? And then you found that feeling that he's having that he's not aware of, and you can show him how to get a better one.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is so different from what I was expecting from you to be this sense of getting into the body rather than you have these charts and these theories and
Yeah.
these books and everything like that. So really interesting.
That's what's so funny about studying consciousness and philosophy and everything. It comes all the way back around, and you go, "Oh, it's all just like this basic stuff I want. It
Mm.
all is about food and sex, and whether or not I got enough sunlight today." And then the complexities of how we make those things happen is how we get into the abstract philosophy. People will talk about whatever communism and capitalism and Ayn Rand and everything. But what all of those philosophies are made of is just basically like, I want more comfy things and less nasty things. That's all that all the philosophies are ever made of.
Yeah.
So once you get down to the meat and potatoes of it, that's how you guide yourself, by figuring out what it is that you want, and then you can apply that to why it is or is not working in your life.
Hmm. For those who do want more of more the cognitive approach to things, I wonder what books do you recommend most to your clients?
Oh, I have a book list. So
Yes.
if you go on my link tree, I'll write that down too.
I'll put the link tree in the description as well.
Yeah. So the first thing that the books that I would recommend people would change very much on an individual basis. But the first one that I got into that changed my path was Ken Wilber, and it was a theory of everything. linktr.ee/HOE_MATH. Um, it was Ken Wilber, A Theory of Everything, and that's on the list too. It should be a Google Doc on
Mhm.
my link tree, and that's like a good introduction to Ken Wilber and Aqua theory, um, the Aqua map. I'm trying to
And you
remember
said
which
that
other ones are
really
on
helped
there right
you?
now. Yeah, it put everything in place, because
Mhm.
when I found integral theory, I had been spending a good few years solidly in level 6 and not understanding why it wasn't working for me, because I just was still under that illusion that everyone is a unique individual and everyone just wants to get along. And it was I had experienced several major failures because of it, and I was like, this life philosophy, this perspective isn't working out for me, but I don't know why. And I started saying things that came from my observations that would make my other level 6 friends and girls I dated angry, because if you ever say something that's too far ahead of somebody, they view it as being far behind them because that's the only vocabulary they have. So I started saying and doing things that, I was like leaving the plantation basically, but it was confusing and they were trying to drag me back down. And I was like, well, I want to be accepted by these people, but what the things they say don't make any sense anymore. And then I picked up the book and I read it and I went, oh, someone thought of all of this. And I don't have to struggle at all. Just hand this book out. So yeah, that was a big step for me.
Okay. So that
Really.
one's a big one for you. Any others
Mhm.
that you think are particularly super valuable books?
I mean, again, it depends what it is that you want to do. There's a book called Focusing by Eugene Gendlin, and it is a really, really good introduction to super, super simple ways of accessing self-reflection if you're not good at it.
Hmm.
And I remember one part of this book in particular was you can just call a friend on the phone and just not talk and just be on the phone and just be aware that this person is there in case you say something, but you don't have to say anything. You can just go like I'm having a problem and I just need to be connected. And then just knowing that someone is listening will aid in your own self-reflection.
That's incredible. I
Yeah.
never would have guessed.
Yeah, there's a lot of secrets out there. There's a
Okay.
lot of real interesting stuff that you can do to grow as a person that you wouldn't think of. We all think of progress and growth and action in terms of it's still sort of like a very level 5 system where you go to school, you get your grades, you get the money, you get the house. That's the structure
Hmm.
of the way that we think of things, but it isn't the only way that things work. It's just the way that things work in the modern world, in the post-industrial society. And there are a lot of sort of, I don't know if I would call them witchy, but they're definitely like very abstract ways of changing your life by changing the way you look at your life that are accessible through materials like that. Focusing by Eugene Gendlin, and I just read one called God, I can't remember. It was like King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, or something.
Yeah, Robert Moore.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I just read that one, and that provides some really good perspective on like I'm not really totally a grown up, you know? And
Hmm.
I'm a way too old for that. And this book kind of outlined why. It's like I'm occupying a youthful archetype of the hero rather than the mature archetype of the king. And it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense because the context I've lived in hasn't given me the opportunity to pass this test to become a certain thing in society. So
When you know something like that about yourself, what do you do with that?
me, I'm just leaning into it. I'm just like, yeah, I'm a dumb little boy. I'm a 40-year-old child, but I'm very smart and I know things. So, I just own it. Like I use the opportunity to be self-expository. Like I'm one of the things that people criticize about me a lot, which is very unhelpful criticism, is they say if you don't have these things that you're saying are good, then you can't be a good source of information about it. But you know, sometimes the guy that you really want to talk to about what you should do in life is the guy who's in prison for drug deals and murders. It's like he knows who not to hang out with,
Yeah.
you know? That guy knows a lot of details about what you should avoid in life, and there's wisdom in that too. Somebody said recently wisdom is the sum of all failures, which I think is not a comprehensive answer, but for sure that's a part of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
when
I
I know
think of
something,
your work
yeah,
and dating. I mean, like,
hmm
some guy who got married at 21 does not
yeah,
have the depth of experience that you have, even though he may be
yeah.
happily married.
Yeah, so he's got the goal and everything, but that doesn't mean that he is a wizard of understanding women. Is just like he's just found his match and good for
Mhm.
him.
Sure.
Yeah, so understanding something like that about yourself, but not having the power to change it. I mean, I may soon have the power to change it if I continue being successful. I could buy a house at some point, and then that could attract a woman, and maybe I'll be able to do that before I'm 90, and we'll see if that works. But It's really neither here nor there. It's like you can be a fat guy who knows how to diet. It's just you're
Mhm.
not doing it right now. So, yeah, I think if you know something like that about yourself that you can't change, uh, owning it and being really open about it is the way that you maintain integrity. It's the way that you integrate yourself.
Mhm.
Because we're all going to have flaws.
Sure.
Just know what they are.
Well, with that, I would like to get into, your work on dating, and maybe we could round
Mhm.
out this conversation with
Sure,
Hoemath's guide to dating, so to speak. But
sure.
before we do that, where should people look for you online?
YouTube. YouTube is my main thing.
Okay.
Lately, I've been, tweeting a lot, but they're not. It's just like a lot of me arguing with people and posting my old videos. YouTube is my main thing.
Mhm.
That's where I post most of my stuff, and you can just, look up Home Math and find me there. That's where you're going to find the vast majority of my content. Every once in a while, I'll post a TikTok that I don't also post to YouTube, but that's been a while. TikTok hasn't been paying as well. So the YouTube and the Linktree are going to have the vast majority of everything that you want to know about me.
Excellent. And we'll have links to those in the description for everybody to check out.
Yeah.
And to round this out,
Hmm.
let's talk some dating. Um,
Sure.
Maybe first, just like an overview, what
Hmm.
would you say is the sort of home math approved outline of how to have success in dating? If you were to take somebody and they wanted to change that part of their life.
Oh, sure. Okay. So that would be summarized in the self-maximize packet. I'll just take
Hmm.
that out again. It basically is, I put together a whole checklist. There's the self-maximize map, and I put together a checklist based on my zones map, which the version 3 was more fleshed out than version 2. Let's see, where is it? Right there. And it basically is just all of these individual things. Like you have to make sure that you're as physically attractive as possible, make sure you're dressed well, and make sure that you're there was one guy who I coached about his voice. He was talking kind of like this and he didn't have to, and it was and I said, if you speak more like a traditional in a traditional masculine way, you're probably going to seem more confident, and women will feel better about um you know being around you, uh getting in shape, all these different things about your physical attractiveness, and then masculinity, which is competence and confidence. Be good at things and then act like you're good at them. Some guys think you can be just confident and just say you're good at stuff, but they always find out about that. So basically, in the self maximize packet, which is available on my Patreon, I put together a checklist of the things about yourself that you can maximize, and you just have to figure out what's the difference between what you're doing now in those areas and what you could be doing. And once you do that, or once you're at least on the way, then you have to uh, I've got this map here, the how attractive one, figure out who in the market is going to give you an equal amount of value. Like, you don't want to be in a relationship like this where one person is doing everything and the other person is like, "Oh, I'll stick around as long as you do everything." So you have to really make the best thing of yourself that you can, whether you're um it's mostly men who follow me, so you got to be the best,
Hmm. Yeah.
man you can in the market, make yourself as valuable as you can in the market, and then find out who's going to give you a good deal for that, so that you don't end up like this guy who's hanging out with the girl for years and years, and then she just hooks up with the frat boy one night after his years of investment. You have to know who actually wants to be around you. So you got to increase your value and then see who's going to give you a good deal for it.
Hmm. And
And
then,
the process of increasing your value is very complex. It's like there are a lot of guys who argue with me from a black pill perspective, and they just say, "Oh, it's over, and there we need, state mandated monogamy, or else everything is going to collapse." But that it really isn't true. Like, there are short guys with hot wives. There are ugly guys with girlfriends who are crazy about them because they're badasses. There's a lot of things that you can do to make yourself more attractive in general to a broad population. Then all you got to do is get out and see who responds to it. And a lot of guys would rather give up and blame the world than do that.
so that get out in the world and see who responds to it part.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we've got a pretty complicated maybe not complicated, but a lot of things that we can be working on in
Yeah.
ourselves to
Hmm.
be more attractive.
Yeah.
But then to go out in the world and see who responds to it, that doesn't necessarily sound easy either, given that,
Mm,
everybody's on their phone. Who do you approach? If you're using dating apps, that can
that's
be its own
true.
sort of world. So how do you navigate that part?
That's true. And for me, this is going to be different than it is for the newer generations. And I'm not sure that I have a comprehensive answer for them because for
Mm,
me, when I got in shape and went out and socialized and everything, I just saw women begin to look at me more and smile at me more and pay attention to me more. And it's like, well, these are very clear signs. I did something right, and now I'm getting attention. I guess the younger generations just don't do that as much. I guess they're all at home on their phones. And I think that's terrible. I'm not sure if I have the answer to that,
yeah.
but I encourage them always to go out to, there was one guy who said he played accordion. And I said, well, that's interesting. Not everyone is going to love accordion, but someone will say, oh, that's pretty cool. If you go and competently play accordion for 1,000 people, there's probably going to be one girl who wants to talk to you because of it. So you have to go like find those things that exist. And if they don't exist, create them. But in terms of what does an entire generation that never leaves the house do in order to be seen by other people? I'm really not sure other than like trying to maximize your dating profile, but we already know all the problems with that. That's just like the 80-20 rule gets really strong there. The Pareto
Mm,
principle excludes a lot of men from being noticed there. I have generally recommended to stay off the apps. And it's also my impression that app usage is declining now and people
mm,
are going back out into the world. So I just it's kind of an I don't know answer. I don't really know what it's like for generations after mine. I know what worked for me
mm.
is creating value in myself and then letting people see it. And then whoever likes it, that's who I have to pick from. But how do you get people to see it other than just posting it online? I don't know. I'm hoping that they can find ways to get out of the house and meet people in real life because the internet ain't it, in my opinion.
So if you recommend staying off the apps, then I'm vaguely remembering that you've talked in a video, maybe you were counseling someone about how not to be creepy, that there
Hmm.
are there are places in the world where there's sort of a litmus test for where's a good place to approach a
Yeah.
stranger and
Oh
where's
yeah, very
not,
much.
maybe
Mhm.
for things like that guys are trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Some of us growing up probably just figured this out intuitively, but now
Mhm.
I think there's sort of a retraining that needs to happen.
Yeah, there are people that like a lot of the red pill guys encourage young men to go approach as many women as possible. And there are guys out there, and I've spoken to some of them who are just walking up to 50 women every day and going, "Hey, baby, can I get your number?" And it's like you're just really creeping them out, especially if you're 5'9" and only mid looking. It's like you're upsetting a lot of people to get one or two numbers, and then when you call them, she's not going to like you. So, um, if you're not a movie star, you're not gorgeous or something, and you're just like approaching women, most of the time it's going to be unwelcome. There was a video, this girl who was a lawyer, and she was wearing these like devil heart glasses. She's wearing these like heart sunglasses with devil horns on them, and looking as angry as possible. And she was talking about when she gets approached by men on the subway, that it feels like a hostage negotiation because she can't leave. And it's like, don't make women feel that way. That's it's not going to be successful strategy for you. So the places like the subway or public places where there's no expectation of socialization, I think are a real waste of time for most guys. And I think that's something that you would. So I'll give you an example. There was a festival in the last place I lived every month where there would be like tables with girls reading tarot cards and selling crystals and guys with cards for their beer brewery, and there would be a local band and everything, and it was just a little festival on the street, and it was a small town and everything, but you could just go out there and there would be 100 people or so from this 20,000 person town just hanging out and having a good time, and I would be able to just ride my bike to this festival from my house and just talk to the crystal girl, and you're in a place where there's an expectation of socializing.
Mm,
So if you hit on the crystal girl, that's way more expected than stopping her in the grocery store when she's trying to pick out chicken,
mm.
because she voluntarily went to a place where you're supposed to meet people.
Yeah.
And I think if people did more of that rather than the subway thing, they'd get more success, or at least learn, how to be social faster.
Mhm. Yeah, just to make this really tangible for people. So what
Mhm.
are a handful of those places that you might recommend?
Um, Board game nights are a popular thing.
Mhm.
Typically the big one is the bar, because if
Yeah.
you're at a bar and someone talks to you, you don't get to be mad about it. You went to the bar. You're putting yourself there. There's an expectation that people will talk to you. If you live in a place that has events like that, you can just go out to them, and it's like any kind of event. You can go to a music show, comedy show. You can go to um, any sort of a like an entertainment event. One of the examples that I use in my videos was art. So if you're standing in an art exhibit, and there's someone that you might want to talk to, also looking at the same piece of art, you can make a comment about the art and pretend that you're interested in the art, where you're actually really interested in her reaction, and you test
Mhm.
her reaction. So if she gives you a cold reaction, then you've got your answer, and there's plausible deniability, so everyone can go home without being upset.
I like that. That's you've talked about this idea too before, sort of a
Mhm.
John Gottman making a bid kind of idea, yeah?
Yeah, he calls it a bid, and he used that in terms of established relationships, where it's couples who will say, "Oh, look at the bird outside," and whether or not you respond determines, the strength of the relationship. But even for people who don't know each other, you can use that concept of a bid to just see if that person's interested in talking to you at all. I called it the bird test in my video.
Like, hey, look at that bird.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
a bird.
Mhm.
If they get excited about talking to you about some boring bird, they're really excited about you, not about the bird.
Mm. It's a good test.
Yep.
I want to
Mhm.
give you the final word on this conversation. It's been great to talk to you.
Yeah,
Is there
thank you.
anything else that you'd like to add? Any final tips on the dating thing, or just on your ideas, your philosophy in general? I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to wish everyone good luck out there. Things are pretty crazy. I think that God, you're kind of asking me to summarize the whole thing in one breath. Um, my experiences that times have been tough. I've been very lucky to be I've had a lot of very lucky opportunities in my life, especially this one that I'm having right now. I know a lot of people out there are kind of struggling or cornered, or there's a lot of despair. I'm hearing a lot of despair. I'm hearing a lot of people give up and say it's not worth it. And um, I even though I understand that, even though I get why you would do that, I think that the very core of the message that I'm trying to send right now is that you're you're not going to make the world better, and you're not even going to make your own life better by doing that. You're just going to avoid investing. That's all, and that's all that does. All you're doing is saying, I don't want to put anything in because I don't think I'm going to get anything out. But if you don't put anything in, you're not going to get anything out. It's better to try. So I don't know. It's like, I wish that I could say that putting something in will definitely get you something out. But all I can say is that not putting something in will definitely not get you something out. So I don't know. We need a revitalization of hope and of positive projections into the future. And I'm hoping to be able to get a significant amount of people to do that, start a little movement.
It sounds great, man. And we're
Yeah.
we're back full circle, encouraging
Mm-hmm.
people just to try. And
Yep.
I appreciate that so much about you and your work. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for spending this time with me. Really, I've
Thank you,
enjoyed
Joe.
it and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this episode. To help get more great guests on the show, be sure to subscribe.